It is May 2023. Arvind Krishna, the chief executive of IBM, sits down for an interview with Bloomberg. In the next few minutes, he will say one careful, heavily qualified sentence, and then spend 3 years watching the world repeat it, without the qualifications. Asked about AI and back-office work, Krishna says he could easily see 30% of those roles, roughly 7,800 people, replaced by AI and automation over 5 years. And so he adds IBM will pause or slow hiring for them. Could. 5 years. Pause hiring. Remember the qualifiers. Nobody else did. Within days, the hedge is gone. The projection becomes a plan. The plan becomes a past tense fact, and the number rounds itself up. IBM, the story now goes, replaced 8,000 workers with AI. It is one of the most cited statistics of the entire AI era. It never happened. This is the story of the most influential layoff that never happened, who needed it to be true, what it was hired to do, and what was actually going on inside IBM while the world repeated it. Watch the sentence mutate in real time. May 2023. A conditional 5-year could-see projection about pausing hires. Within days, headlines announcing IBM will replace 7,800 jobs with AI. Within months, conference slides stating IBM replaced 8,000. By 2024, the myth has set like concrete, quoted in boardrooms, pitch decks, and parliament hearings as a thing that occurred. The mechanism is the telephone game, played by professionals. Each retelling deletes one qualifier. Could see becomes will, 5 years becomes now, pausing hires becomes firing people. None of the individual edits feels like lying. Each one just makes the sentence cleaner. Run enough of them, and the truth is gone. One harmless simplification at a time. Now ask the better question. Why did this myth spread faster than any correction? Because it was useful. Every executive who already wanted cuts needed a precedent. A famous, respectable company that had already done it. The 8,000 was not information. It was a permission slip, with IBM's logo at the top. Meanwhile, the real project at IBM was almost aggressively boring. An internal agent called Ask HR took over routine human resources work. The password resets, the vacation requests, the paperwork that eats an HR department alive. Question comes in, the routine gets resolved by the machine, and the hard cases route to humans. That was the revolution. Plumbing. But plumbing doesn't trend. The phantom number did. For 2 years, the 8,000 headlined the AI jobs debate on every continent, proof finally that the robots had started taking the jobs. And in every boardroom, the same quiet calculation began. If IBM cut 8,000, what is our number? So here is the question this case file exists to answer. While the world was repeating the 8,000, what was actually happening to headcount inside IBM? The answer is on the record, from the one man who would know. Here it is, the pair of numbers this whole file turns on. The myth, 8,000 jobs replaced by AI. The reality, stated plainly by IBM's own chief executive, a couple hundred roles. Not 8,000, roughly 200. The most cited AI layoff in history was off by a factor of 40. And the fuller picture is stranger still. Ask HR really did automate about 94% of routine HR tasks. The technology worked, but the hours it freed were not deleted from payroll. They were reinvested. IBM hired more programmers, more sellers, more builders. Total employment by Krishna's own account went up. The confusion hiding inside the myth is the oldest one in automation. Tasks are not jobs. A job is a bundle. Some of it routine, some of it judgment. Ask HR ate the routine 94% of certain tasks, and the people moved up the bundle toward the work that needed them. Automating 94% of paperwork is not the same as deleting 94% of people. The headline writers never learned the difference. So why did the phantom outrun the fact? Because the myth was portable and the truth had homework attached. 8,000 fits in a tweet, a slide, a budget meeting. The reality, careful automation, task-level redesign, redeployment, demands actual work to retell. In the attention economy, the number that requires no thinking always wins the race. And look at who kept the phantom alive. Executives who needed a precedent for cuts they had already decided on. Vendors who needed proof their products replaced payroll. Headline writers for whom 8,000 beats, it's complicated every single day. Nobody in that chain was lying exactly. Everybody was just selling. By 2025, Krishna was correcting the record in interview after interview, patiently explaining that AI had replaced a couple hundred roles and that the savings had funded hiring elsewhere. The corrections ran as footnotes. The phantom kept its headline font. And that is the uncomfortable heart of this file. The 8,000 was never reporting. It was a wish, wearing a number. Call the wish by its name. The subtraction fantasy. The dream that the machine simply deletes payroll, no redesign, no rebuilding, no hard questions, just the same company with fewer salaries. The buried failures and the inflated successes both point at it. Klarna lived the fantasy and had to call humans back. IBM never lived it at all and got cited as its proof. Because myths have consequences, and 2026 is what they look like. The layoff trackers count 247 layoff events this year, and 55% of them explicitly cite AI. In March, Block cut 4,000 people, about 40% of the company, citing the growing capability of AI tools. The permission slip is being cached, economy-wide. Sit with the trackers' totals for a second. Nearly 184,000 workers across those 247 events. 135 of those events name AI as a reason. Each one is a board that ran somebody else's arithmetic. And somewhere near the top of the citation chain, more often than you would believe, sits a phantom from 2023. And now the audits of the subtraction era are arriving. Gartner surveyed the companies that did the cutting. Roughly 80% of organizations deploying autonomous capabilities reduced their workforce, and the reductions show no relationship to return on investment. The firms that gained the most used AI for what Gartner calls people amplification. The exact thing the real IBM story described 3 years ago. Even IBM's own present tense keeps making the point. Yes, the company runs rolling restructurings. No one is pretending otherwise, but in November, Krishna publicly admitted the graduate hiring squeeze is real, and by February, Bloomberg reported IBM plans to triple its entry-level hiring, young people managing AI and facing customers. Subtract here, multiply there. The arithmetic never stopped being about redeployment. Run the phantom through our framework and it breaks where every borrowed strategy breaks. The vision layer. A company that puts 8,000 on a slide has answered how many? But not the only question that compounds. What are the humans for? Cut without that answer, and the layers above just inherit the whole. The rebuild is the boring version IBM actually ran. Automate the routine. Genuinely, deeply the real 94%. Count honestly, a couple hundred is a couple hundred, even when 8,000 would trend. And redeploy the hours into work that compounds. That is the whole trick. It just doesn't fit in a headline. Remember the sentence from the cold open. Could see 30% 5 years? Go listen to it again today. 3 years on, that one hedge is load-bearing infrastructure. It props up layoff memos, vendor decks, and keynote slides across an entire economy. One careful sentence, working a job it never applied for. And if you're watching this from inside a company where a number like 8,000 is sitting on a slide right now, ask one question before the vote. Whose arithmetic is that? If the honest answer is IBM's or Klarna's or a keynote's, you are not planning. You are repeating a rumor with a budget attached. Because there were always 2 IBMs in this story. The one on the slide fired 8,000 people and proved the robots take jobs. The one on the record automated paperwork, replaced a couple hundred roles, and hired more humans than it had before. Only one of them ever existed. The economy spent 3 years quoting the other one. 3 lessons from the file. 1. Do your own arithmetic. Borrowed numbers break companies. 2. Automate tasks, not people. 94% of paperwork is not 94% of jobs. 3. Redeploy the hours the machine returns because that, not the subtraction, is where the return has ever been found. This was Case File 4, the phantom that launched 1,000 layoffs. Next, we leave the case files and follow the money. The consultants, the vendors, and the strange industry that gets paid whether any of this works or not.